Hi there, this is Catherine with Enfolded Heart Music. Today we're going to be doing a walkthrough tutorial for the Lyre song Butterfly Dream. This is the first song on the album, which is also entitled Butterfly Dream. And I decided to do this song in particular as the next song for these walkthroughs because it's one of the easier songs on the album. It's also I was going to say one of my favorites. It may be my actual favorite on this particular album. I tend to play it most often. So anyways, I wanted to share it with you and offer this tutorial, just a step-by-step, note-by-note walkthrough of this particular piece in case you also wanted to play it. If you're not familiar with this form of tutorials, you can find all sorts of different ones for different songs that I've written on my YouTube channel. And the intention is for anyone who, of course, wants to learn the song and has a particular focus for somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot of musical background and struggles to read sheet music. And so having the sheet music is not quite enough to be able to learn the piece. So I try and do as many as I can with the other commitments that I have in my life. I try to do these to offer just a little bit of an extra hand for somebody who wants to learn some of these songs. So that's what the intention is for this. I will be using the sheet music, which is available on my Patreon. It's available as a hard copy, a physical copy. It's also available as a digital copy. You can purchase the digital as a particular song, like just this one song or the whole album, whatever you prefer. There's also subscription options, all sorts of different ways that you can purchase it if you desire to do so. If you have any questions about where something is or how to access something, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll do my very best to be able to help you find what you're looking for. I will be using the sheet music as reference for where we are in the piece, so I'll be talking about saying, okay, we're going to be working from this measure to this measure. I may point out a particularly tricky rhythm, something like that. So I find it helpful to be able to have, for you and I to have a common piece of material, a common product, to be able to communicate a little bit better. It's not necessary by any means, but it might be something really helpful for you. And if you're trying to learn how to read sheet music, it might be a nice way to just get a little bit of practice with that as you're watching this, so that you know that you're getting those notes correctly. So the only other last note about sheet music is that I always include 2 copies of sheet music. The first is just your typical notation. The second copy, which is what I'll be using today, has the octave number and the note name, like for example A, B, C, D, E, F, or G, underneath or above, right next to the note. So that again is intended for anybody who maybe isn't super strong in being able to read sheet music and finds that helpful. So that's included in every copy. If you buy one, if you just buy just Butterfly Dream, this specific song, it will give you both of those copies. So just so you know, that's available for you. Okay, this video is going to be in several different parts, probably 3 different parts we'll see. I'm sorry, not necessarily the video, though that's also true, but the series, the tutorial as a whole will be in several different parts. So this video will be part 1 of probably 3 parts that I hope to do in the next week or 2. So if you are watching this and you finish this video, be sure to take a look to see if those other parts are available. Okay, with that, we're going to get started by looking at the sheet music, talking about some of the patterns in the music, and then we'll dive into the actual song. Okay, for the first part of the tutorial, I find it always very helpful for myself, and I encourage this for my students, to take a look at the piece as a whole. Most music has some sort of pattern to it. There's repetition, different parts come back. That's part of telling a story and doing so through music. So if we can see sort of the roadmap of the piece, then it makes it a little bit less daunting and helps us to realize that if we learn, this particular section, well, if it repeats itself 3-4 times, then we've already learned actually quite a bit more of the piece than maybe we had anticipated. So with that, I've already marked this on my sheet music, but what I'd like to do is to share with you what those sections are. So I simply call them sections A, B, C, and D. Those, we don't have anything after D for this particular piece. But if you want to take a pencil and in whatever way you prefer, maybe draw some brackets around these sections, maybe mark an A and circle it or something like that, then I would encourage you to do that. Okay, so part A, there's kind of two different sections in part A. You could also divide this in half, but I decided to leave it as is. But part A is from measures 1 to 14. It comes back again from measures 31 to 45. The second half of part A comes back for a third time in measures 62 through 72. And then directly after that section, we have the entirety of part 1, and that runs from measures 73 through 82. Part B we only have once, and that is from measures 15 through 22. Part C we have twice, and that's from measures 23 through 30 and 54 through 61. And then finally we have part D, which goes from measures 46 through 53. So part A repeats 3 times in full and 1 additional time, just the second half, and part B repeats itself once. So it's played a total of 2 times. Okay, and that's how this tutorial will be divided up following these sections. So once you have that marked, the next thing that we need to do is to make sure that our lyre is tuned in the correct tuning, meaning that our strings are tuned to the appropriate pitch. What I'm going to do from basically this time until probably the very end of the tutorial is I'm going to reposition my microphone and do a couple of things, and I'm going to zoom in on the lyre. I've got a nice little black curtain behind me. Hopefully that will allow you to see the instrument a little bit better in the particular strings. This was suggested to me, and I really appreciate that. So I'm going to zoom in. I've got something dark behind me, and but I'm going to do that for the tuning, and then we'll jump into the actual music in just a second. Okay, hopefully now you can see a little bit better, and what we're going to take a look at now is the appropriate tuning for the particular strings. Because the lyre is a diatonic instrument, we can't switch back and forth between notes in one song, so we need to make sure that we're tuned in the correct key to be able to play all the notes in this song. Now, one thing I did for the Butterfly Dream album in general was I actually wrote every song in the same key signature. And that allows you to be able to play all the songs on that album, as well as many songs on the Whispers of Beauty album, without having to change any of your pegs. Now, of course, you're going to want to make sure that you're not super sharp or super flat, and do some normal tuning, but you won't have to change notes. So that was something that I personally wanted to do for myself, and then also to give that as a little gift for anyone wanting to play these pieces. So very quickly, this is a 19-string lyre. We have the lowest note at the bottom, highest note at the top. You may have a 16-string, you may have a 19-string, you may have the top note at the bottom, meaning closest to you, and the lowest note at the top, farthest from you. Lyres are made in different ways, but you should be able to play this song regardless of whether you have a 16 or 19 string, and regardless of the way it is strung. Now, of course, if yours is strung in the opposite direction, it's you're going to have to pay more attention to how you need to play the notes, because it'll look quite a bit different as compared to what I'll be showing you here. Most of the song, if you've got a 16-string lyre, most of the song you'll be able to reach those notes. But there will be a few where you can't reach them, and I have, in those places, given you alternative notes that are in little parentheses, and I'll point that out once we get there in the sheet music. Okay, but for right now, let's focus just on the tuning. The tuning for this piece is in A minor. It's got the same key signature as C major, which means that it has no sharps and no flats. Okay, so when you are looking at your tuner and going through each note, etc., you should never see a sharp or a flat come up there. That means you're on the wrong note if you do. Okay, I'm not going to go through every string because it's just in alphabetical order. I've also got it listed at the top of the sheet music. So the bottom note will be F3, and then of course it goes to G3, A3, B3, C4, etc. until you go all the way to the top. If you've got a 16-string lyre, it is likely that your top note will be an A5. If you've got a 19-string, it's likely that yours will be a C6. Okay, again, if you have any questions about the tuning, feel free to put it in the comments or reach out to me personally via email. Happy to help you out with that. But make sure you got it all tuned correctly. Again, if you've got any questions, you can take a look at the very top of the page there. But for now, for this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and jump in. We're going to talk about section A first. And again, that goes from measures 1 through 14. So come back for that once you have everything set up, you've got your sheet music marked how you want, and you've got your lyre tuned in A minor. Okay, in this video, in this part of the tutorial, we're going to be going through parts A and B, which is a pretty significant part of the piece considering how often and how much part A repeats itself. So this will take us from measures 1 through 22. Okay, but for part A, we're just going to go from measures 1 through 14. Now what I'd like to do at the beginning, what I'd like to start with is to do the left hand first because it has a rhythmic structure, and even the notes, the pitches, are repeated pretty much throughout the whole piece. There's small variations to it, but it is by and large the same thing. So I'd like to introduce that to you now so that we can move even faster with some of the next sections. Now before I even begin, just as a side note, I'm going to be going much faster than I would expect anybody who's trying to learn the song for the first time to go. That is for the sake of the length of the video, and also because it will be up to you to be able to judge when you need to stop, practice something, and then move forward. I will stop and do things in certain chunks and then add those together. I'll do that more at the beginning than I will at the end, and that's mostly to give you an idea of how to practice and in what way to go about learning any piece, and this piece in particular. So please don't misunderstand my pace for the pace that I would recommend that anybody, again, learning the piece would go. Okay, so let's start with the left hand. Looking at measure 1, let's just look at the pitches. What are the strings that we need to look at, that we need to play? So we have A3, C4, E4, and C4. We then move down, so this I'll call an A position. It's A minor. After that, we move down to what I'll call the G position, G major. Here we have G3, B4, D4, and B4. Following that, we move back up to the A position, which has the same notes as we just had in measure 1, A, C, E, C. Now I'm going to stop there because all three of those sections have the same rhythm. So here's how the rhythm sounds. I'll do it on the proper notes. So we'll go again from A to B to A. But here's the rhythmic structure that, here's how the rhythmic movements of the piece go. I'll do that again. Okay. Now the second measure, though the first half is the same as the first measure, the second half of the second measure is not. We go to B3 and then A3. So this is how the second measure will sound. Again. Let's take a look now at measure 3. if we take a close look at it, we can see that measure 3 is actually the same as measure 1 in the left hand. It's also true in the right hand, but we're focusing on the left hand. So we can actually continue to go to measure 4, which is the same rhythmically as measure 3, but the notes are a little bit different. The first half, it's the same. We again have our A position. But then rather than going from our C, then to B and A, we will instead go from C to D to B. So it will sound like this. This is measure 4. One more time. And then if we take a look at the third line, measures 5 and 6, and we compare that to the first two measures, 1 and 2, we see they're exactly the same. So what I'd like to do is to go ahead and play that left hand by itself with the metronome, measures 1 through 6. I've got my metronome set at 100 beats per minute. That's a BPM, beats per minute. This song is in 6/8, so make sure that you've got whatever your metronome, however it communicates it to you. Mine just says beats and then it has a particular number. Usually the automatic way it's set up is to do 4 beats. That's a very, 4/4 is a very common time signature. But this song is in 6/8, so you need to have 6 beats. So let's go ahead and do left hand at 100 beats per minute. You're welcome to slow it down. I would encourage you to do that actually. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to have it at 100, measures 1 through 6, left hand only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stop it there. And now let's move to the right hand. So let's take a look at the right hand. Just like our left hand was in an A position and started on an A, our right hand also starts on an A, but it's an octave higher. So this is A4. Then we have E5, C5, G5, D5, D5, and E5. We're going to stop there and I'll go ahead and play the proper rhythm for you and then we will keep going. Again. Okay. Now let's look at measure 3. Measure 3 is exactly the same as measure 1. This is something very common, at least in the music that I write. A lot of repetition. I like that familiarity with a little bit of variance. So we again have that's measure 3 as well as measure 1. The only difference in the second line versus the first line is that rather than repeating the D5 again, we actually go straight to the highest A on our instrument, A5. So those two measures will sound like this. This is 3 and 4. And because I know what's coming next, I'm going to go ahead and keep moving. Otherwise, I would normally do measures 1 through 4 with the right hand only together, but we can see that measures 5 and 6 are exactly the same as measures 1 and 2. Again, this was true with the left hand, so that means that both the right and left hand are exactly the same in measures 1 and 2 compared to 5 and 6. So let's go ahead and simply do measures 1 through 6 all together, right hand only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then we'll leave it there for right now. Again, let's go ahead and put our 2 hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's move on to the rest of part A. This is measures 7 through 14. And again, we'll see a lot of repetition. So we'll start once again with the left hand. I'm actually not really even going to play much of this because it's the same as what we've had in the first part of this section. We have our A position, and then G position, and then back up to A, and it basically just goes back and forth all the way through that first page. The only time it changes in the rest of this section is in the very last measure, measure 14. So let's kind of zoom in on that. Of course, if you need to practice going back and forth between the A position and the G and back to A, that's great, because that's really all this section is. So that's for you to do with your own discernment, your own time, at your own pace. That's really what I meant. So measure 14, we have still in our A position, so we have A, C, E. It's just in a different rhythmic structure. We go from A, C to E, back down to A. So I'm actually going to play this measure 14, connected to measure 13, so you can hear the difference. So here's measures 13 and 14 with the metronome, so we can hear the proper rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now let's take a look at the right hand, because this is very different than what we played at the beginning of part 1. So let's look at the first 2 measures. That is measures 7 and 8. We start on E5 and go to A. Then we go back to E5. You can think of these in threes. Then we go to D5, A4, D5. And then back up to E5, A4, E5. We then end this little phrase on A5. I'm going to leave out the pickup notes for the moment. Here's the proper rhythm for this. Again. Okay. Then at the end of measure 8, we have E5, D5, leads back into the same thing. So here's measures 7, 8, and 9, right hand. Okay. Do that a few times. Make sure you get a nice, comfortable feel to that. Then let's look at measure 10. We have C5, B4, A4, B4, C5. Let's flip the page. And we see then we go back to what we just played before with the E5, A4, E5. So let's back up, back to measure 10. Make sure we have the proper rhythm for that. So here's measure, let's do 9 and 10 so that we have a nice lead into it. Here we go. Again. And as we continue to the rest of part A, we see our next measure 11 is the same as what we've done before. And now the pickup notes are a little bit different because we have a sort of end to the section. So pick up to measure 13, we have E5, A5, and then in measure 13 is the first time we have a divergence between the notes for 16 string and 19 string. So I'm going to do 19 string first, then I'll do 16 and go back to 19. I'll focus on 19 because that's the original way the piece was written. So after the E5 and A5, for 19 string we go up to that C, B, A, G, A, B, C, and A. For the 16, you will also do E5 and A5, but rather than going up to the C, you're going to go down to G. After G5, you have E5, D5, C5, D5, E5, G5, and then you also end on A5. So here is how that rhythm sounds. I will use the metronome for this one so you can hear it. This is the pickup, starting with the pickup, but measures 13 and 14. Right hand only. I'll be playing the 19 string from here on out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now let's go ahead and put those two hands together for measures 7 through 14. And we'll go ahead and use the metronome. We'll do this twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and that is the end of part A. So again, work on that. Make sure it's really solid because it repeats itself so much throughout the piece. And when you feel like you're ready to go ahead and start learning part B, come back for that next section. Okay, welcome back for part B. This part goes from measures 15 through basically the first half of measure 22. So we're going to continue moving in a very similar fashion as we did with part A by beginning with the left hand. Okay, for this section, in contrast to what we did before, which was staying in a position of A minor and G major, we're going to be moving up and we'll be in D minor and E minor. But we'll still have very similar rhythmic structures as we did before. Not exactly the same, but certainly some similarities. So let's look at measure 15 at first. So we have D4, F4, A4, and F4. Then we move up to E4, G4, and B4. So let's pause there and just listen to the proper rhythm. Again. If we look at measure 16, we see that the first part is exactly the same. The second part, when we move up to the E position, is the same, essentially the same. Well, I shouldn't say that. We'll just have it as two distinct things. So we have E4 and G4. We do not go up to the B4. So this is how I'll put 16 and 17 together, left hand only. This is how they sound. Again. Okay. Now let's go ahead and continue moving forward on this. We've got measure 17, same beginning. And we even have the same notes as measure 16, E4 and G4, but they just play a little closer to each other. So let's add measure 17 to 15 and 16. Now that may sound a little funny on its own, but if we look at the right hand, we see that basically the left hand at the end of those measures, for example, the G4 that plays at the end of measure 16 and then again at measure 17, it sort of plays in the gap of the right hand, and that's why it's a little bit different. Okay, then in measure 18, we are back in our D position, but a different pattern. So we have D4, E4, A4, and then we play G4, E4. So we still move from D position to E position, but the notes are a little bit different. So here is 18 added to 15, 16, and 17. Okay, I'm going to repeat that for you because this section repeats itself again in measures 19, 20, 21, and for the most part, 22. So here's, 15 through 18 again. Okay, so measures 19 and 20, that's the same as 15 and 16. Measure 21 is the same as measure 17. Measure 22, the first part is exactly like measure 18, but rather than going from G4 to E4, we simply go back to the D. So measure 22 sounds like this. Again. Okay, let's do all the left hand for part B with a metronome, and then we'll move to the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at the right hand. So just like the left hand shifted from A up to D, so the right hand will shift from an A position up to D. We were down here, and now we're moving here. Okay. So measure 15, we have D5, A5, F5, oops, and E5. So again, that's D5, A5, F5, and E5. We then have the same first three notes, D5, A5, F5, and then for the 19 string, we go up to B5, and then go to G5. If you've got a 16 string, instead of going to the B5, you will go to E5, back up to G5. So let's do those two measures right hand only, 15 and 16. Again. Then we have in measure 17, something very similar. We also have D5, A5, F5, E5. But rather than holding E5 for the whole measure, we then add a C5, and in the phrase in measure 18, by simply a D5 that rings for the whole measure. So here's how 17 and 18 will sound. So let's go ahead and do measures 15 through 18 together, because just as with the left hand, it then has a kind of repetition in the second half of part B. So 15 through 18, let's do this with a metronome. Okay. Then we can see that measures 19 and 20 are the same as measures 15 and 16. So we can continue to move forward. We also see that measure 21 and 17 are the same. And, actually for the purposes of part B, the whole thing is really the same. Because though we end on D for both phrases. And then if we look at measure 22, we also see that we've got an E and a C, but that's really the beginning of part C. So we're not going to do that for today. So instead, let's go ahead and bring back the metronome and play the right hand for all of part B. Oh. Okay. Okay. Now once you have left hand and right hand pretty steady on their own, let's go ahead and put them together. Again, I'm just going to play all of part B with both hands, but I would encourage you to separate it out into 1 to 2 measures and slowly add those pieces together. There we go, all of part D. We'll do it twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, one more time. 5, 6. Okay. All right, I'm going to move the camera up a little bit to close this video. Okay, that's going to conclude the first part of our Butterfly Dream walkthrough tutorial. I hope it's been helpful for you. Again, take your own time, go at your own pace, and that's what I would encourage and expect for anybody who's learning the piece the first time. So pause that video, go back to it, do it nice and slow, work with the metronome, all those sorts of things. I'm going to probably just do one other part to it because we've got part C and D, and that's it. Then we put it all together again. So look forward to a part 2 in the coming weeks. Hopefully it'll be quite soon. And until then, hopefully this helps you get started on this particular piece. Feel free to reach out in comments or email if you have any questions or if I can be of help to you in this piece or with your lyre playing in general. And I hope you have a blessed day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.